The Monster Below by Greenback. Read by Deathlight. Chapter 3 From Small Beginnings. The years passed, and life continued much as it always had all my life. Going to school, trying to escape Mangus, and keeping to myself. I eventually stopped racing for the sun, nor did I bother looking for Luna. I didn't become an outcast who hated everyone and everything. For all my problems, I still had parents that cared. And after a while, the stares and the whispers faded as I grew up. Still, I wasn't content nor at peace in Satalanka. I longed for the day when I could leave and find my own place in the world beyond its borders. At long last, that day finally came when I graduated from school. It was a joyous occasion. Perhaps one of the happiest days of my life. My parents were proud of seeing their only child complete his studies and officially become a grown pony. By that time, they managed to get over the disappointment of me being an earth pony, and finally accepted me for who I was. As I walked across the stage to get my diploma, I beamed in seeing them among the crowd of adoring parents. I could feel their love and pride as I finally took the scroll of parchment, which was my reward for so many years of term papers, homework, and science fair projects with its flimsy folding displays. Granted, I had to carry them in my mouth where everyone else magically carried their diplomas. But I didn't care. I was graduated. I was done. At the party afterwards, my fellow students and I gathered and talked, planning our futures and dreaming of all the wonderful things we were going to accomplish. Most would stay in Satalanka and continue their magical studies. A few would go to Canterlot, having been accepted for the universities of higher learning. I could have gone too if I wanted, for the universities of Canterlot offer studies in things other than magic. But even if they offered all the bits in Equestria, I wouldn't have gone. Why? Because Mangus would be there. I wasn't surprised to see Mangus making himself the center of attention at the party, guzzling down most of the beverages and gorging himself on snacks and food, boasting that he was going to go out and be the best student Canterlot had ever seen. It was no surprise, really, that Mangus had been accepted, but he hadn't earned it. While his magical talents were undeniable, Mangus was, at best, a mediocre student, content to let others do most of the work for him when it came up to studies and homework. And sure enough, his teachers, in the idiotic quest to make him the next Starswirl, had pulled strings to ensure he got accepted. As Mangus continued boasting, I chuckled at the thought of him going to the university. If he was going to be the best student ever, Mangus would have to upstage Starswirl and Twilight Sparkle, who were generally regarded as the greatest unicorns Canterlot had ever seen. While his raw talent was roughly equal to theirs, he had none of the persistence or discipline they had. I giggled at the thought. Such a pity I wouldn't be there to watch him fall. Live the more and find out that life isn't so easy when nobody's there to worship you and put you up on a pedestal. I kept to the sidelines of the party, content to be by myself. By the next day, I'd be far away from all these ponies in the room, never to return. I don't hold any ill will towards most of them. I just had no interest in getting close to those who had futures brighter than my own. As the sun went down, I figured it was time to take my leave and slip away from my unicorn classmates forever, especially Mangus. I remember hoping the next time I ever heard from him would be an article in the obituaries. But, alas, fate has a sick sense of humor. "Hey, Silver Squeak," he called out. "Where do you think you're going?" I tried to run, but he's well used to that and cast his magic, dragging me back inside and dangling me before him like a pony would dangle a small animal. "I'm gonna miss you, buddy." He scuffed my hair. "Say, why don't you come along with me? We can be roommates. I mean, we've been together all these years. Why not another 6? I wasn't going to dignify the troglodyte with a response. When he sensed that, Mangus pulled me close in a disgusting mockery of a hug. The crowd roared with laughter, most thinking it was a game. Either that, or we're slightly drunk. I'm not sure which. Mangus's goons thought it was especially hilarious when Mangus pulled me in extra close. "Come here, Smoochy Woochie." Then, before everyone, Mangus kissed me. It wasn't a loving, consensual kiss. A couple only had the most tender affections for each other. It was close. It was a violation. It was Mangus invading my private space in a way I'd never done before. The crowd laughed at the sight, cheering and laughing. The laughter stopped when Mangus screamed and dropped me, blood trickling from his lips. All those years of torment had been bad enough, but this had been the last straw. So I bit him as hard as I could, slicing his lip wide open. I didn't know how much he bled, for I immediately headed for the door. Everyone was so shocked that no one tried to stop me, not even Mangus's goons. I trotted out, smiling all the while. All those years of Mangus tormenting me, and I got the last laugh. He yelled something after me, but I didn't listen. I loved the thought that the last thing I would hear from Mangus was his angry, incoherent shouts. No sound, before or since, had ever been sweeter. As night fell, I wasted no time in packing my things. In truth, I'd been gathering my belongings for a few days, deciding what I would take with me and what I would leave behind. Mainly some clothes, my bits, a few books, and some family photos. Everything else would remain behind. Stuffing my saddlebags, I went to bed and tried to sleep. It was a futile effort, all those years of waiting. And come dawn, I would leave Sadalanka for good. I would have a better chance fighting an evil dragon god than I would getting a lick of sleep. The night sky darkened and began to light up. And when the sun arose, I was there to greet it, pulling on my saddlebags and heading to the kitchen to eat breakfast. My parents were there as well. I had told them of my plan to leave first thing in the morning. I had hoped such a thing would let them emotionally prepare. But my mother, ever more affectionate of the two, was trying her hardest to hold back tears as I entered the dining room. Even Dad, who had made me my favorite type of breakfast burritos, was having trouble staying focused. We tried to eat, but my parents weren't very interested in their own food. After all, the precious colt was heading out on his own. How could they eat breakfast over that? Needless to say, it was the most awkward breakfast one could imagine. When mid-morning came, I left my childhood home and started down the path to the train station. My parents right behind me. We made it to the station with time to spare, and thus giving us time to say our goodbyes. But no parting between parent and child is ever easy, especially when they leave home and travel into the wide world. It wasn't a scary world though. I assured my parents that Equestria was safe enough. After all, the princesses ensured that we were safe and protected from any threats. And if that failed, the bearers of the elements of harmony would be sent in to end the problem. I told them to relax, and I'd be perfectly fine. And besides, there'd be plenty of jobs in Manhattan. I'd be on my hooves soon enough. That didn't help. My mother had become a blubbering wreck. Even my dad, normally quiet and reserved, was struggling. Like any good parents, they wanted me to stay close so that our family would remain together. But I wanted to head out and make my own destiny. I wanted to find a place where I wouldn't stick out because of a lack of horn on my head. All too soon, the train's engine started up. We exchanged our hugs and goodbyes over the hiss of steam. My mother tried to say something, but she was too worked up. I couldn't get the words out. But my dad, however, managed to compose himself long enough to speak. "Silverspeak, I know you're eager to go, and I don't blame you. But before you go, I want to share something with you. Something my father told me. I wasn't in the mood for a lecture, and my dad saw it. It's not long, he assured me. It's a little something to remember wherever you go. When I was about to head out into the world, I was nervous and worried about who I was going to be. My dad assured me that it was normal. We're seeds, he told me. We start out little, but we're meant to grow and become mighty trees. And that's for every pony, unicorn, pegasi, and earth pony alike. Magic or not, everyone can become great." The engine hissed once more, now fully warmed up. "You're meant to do great things, son. Never forget that." The conductor shouted his last call. Mom and Dad wrapped their legs around me and gave one last hug. Anxious as I was to get going, I enjoyed it. Then, the moment was over. My parents released me, and I got into the train. Taking my seat, I leaned out the window and waved to my parents, shouting goodbye and wishing them well as they became smaller and smaller. And then, the station faded along the trees, and they were gone. I looked back longer than I thought I would. Perhaps it was a sudden dose of nostalgia overtaking me, but I watched Satalanka for a long time. Watching as the only home I had ever known faded into the forest at the base of the mountains. It was only as we got out of sight that I leaned back inside the train and sat down in my chair. I contemplated my dad's words for a long time, but they eventually faded away as the reality and excitement of my situation hit me in full. My childhood was behind me, and I'd never felt so giddy or excited. My new life awaited me. I spent most of the ride with my face practically pasted to the window, marveling at the scenery beyond me. I was no stranger to the lands beyond Satalanka, having read about them and seeing it on TV. But it's one thing seeing it on a screen, and something else seeing it with your own eyes. The wonders came almost immediately as we passed beneath Cloudsdale, which was lit with the rays of the setting sun. Even better, riding past the many rainbow waterfalls and seeing how beautiful they were. The following morning sent us past Canterlots. We weren't close enough to get a good look, but even from far away, I could just barely make out some of the towers in the mountains, but none of the princesses were present. The full mountain came next, followed by Niagara Falls, and a trip underneath the Hollow Shades Mountain. And then we emerged the next morning, going towards the rising of the sun. I looked out towards the coast, and the rays shining towards the celestial sea. Far beyond it lay the lands of the Griffins, but I didn't care about them. I was at the front of the train, leaning out through the windows. For beyond us was Buckenhill Bridge. It was as long and tall as I had seen in pictures, the twin horseshoe towers stretching high above us. And as we reached the edge of the bridge, I finally saw it. Manhattan. I still remember the awe I felt at that moment. I had gone from a small community to a big city for the first time. Satalanka's buildings were 3 stories tall at their highest. Manhattan's were 10 times as tall, and some were even bigger. And as the train crossed the bridge, the towers only got bigger until there was nothing but skyscrapers of steel and glass, lit in the rays of the rising sun. I couldn't take my eyes off them, even as the train pulled into the station. I got off and continued to gaze about, as if ensnared by a spell. But the towers were not the only things that Manhattan had to offer. A form flashed before my vision, and then another. It took me a few moments to realize that they were Pegasi, all flying about and darting between towers, heading to and fro on errands, or simply flying out to enjoy the morning. I had seen Pegasi before, for they were usually the ones who took the mail, being the swiftest ponies in all of Equestria, though that was debatable. One gray Pegasi with slightly crossed eyes occasionally mixed up what mail went where. The Pegasi may have domain over Manhattan's skies, but the streets were the realm for ones who had no wings, and there were thousands of them in all matters of shapes, sizes, colors, and hues, creating a rainbow-colored river flowing across the pavement. Those who weren't in hurries to their destinations were chatting with each other, and with unicorns, not as outcasts, but as equals. I couldn't stop grinning as I got off the platform and took my first steps into the Manhattan streets. I had no destination in mind as I walked through Manhattan, marveling at so many new sights, sounds, and smells. With so many ponies around, I felt like a pebble within an avalanche. Just a tiny piece of something much larger than myself. Caught up in the excitement of seeing a new city, I barely noticed as the sun reached its peak, and then dipped below the horizon several hours later. The orange sky darkening with the onset of night. Only when the streetlights came on did I realize that I was technically homeless. My exploration turned into a nearly frantic search for lodging. Manhattan had plenty of places to stay, and I could always rent a hotel for the night. But fate smiled on me that day, for I came across a towering apartment building, A sign read, "Rent for rent." I went inside and talked to the manager. Like all apartments in Manhattan, the first month was free, provided you put down a small deposit at first, which had only cost me a small fraction of bits that I had saved up throughout the years. And just like that, I was given a key to my room. I took the elevator to the 50th floor, emerged to a polished, well-painted hallway, and found room 825. I was home. The place wasn't much. A living room with plenty of space to stretch out. A tiny kitchen that'd give my father fits over how little space there was to store food and seasonings. A bedroom was just big enough to hold a single bed, and a tiny bathroom, but it was just the right size for someone like me. But the real marvel came only after the moon had started into the sky. My position was halfway up the skyscraper. I had a bird's eye view of lights coming on as ponies began their nightly activities, in nearby towers and the streets below. I was like a leaf within a forest of golden light, surrounded on all sides by the warm glow of artificial light. I had stayed by my window for a good hour, for I had never seen so many lights. It was easy to unpack everything, and within 10 minutes, I had everything set up within my new home. With no appliances or televisions, there wasn't much for me to do, but I didn't mind. I was still riding a high on the excitement of a new home. Sleep didn't come until late at night, for I laid upon my bed and looked out the window to the city beyond, and all the possibilities it held. The endless possibilities would have overwhelmed any other pony, but not me. I knew exactly what I came here to do. My dream was not to leave the prideful residence of Sadalenka. No, my dream was far grander. And as I finally got to sleep, and enjoyed the rest of those about to fulfill their dreams, I knew I was the seed that my father had spoken of, but I was about to take hold and spread my roots. And once that was accomplished, no force on heaven or earth would stop me.